Movie ranking, 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 blah, 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 blah. Hello and welcome to the Movie Ranking. I'm your host, Skadooosh. I'm joined today by my close friend and favorite serial killer of all time, Mr. Kyle Arking. Hello, Kyle. Bonjour.
I mean, with that introduction, I shouldn't even be showing my face, but yes, yes, yes. I don't admit to any of these crimes that Skadoosh loves to imply. But yes,
For
yes.
anyone
Hello,
watching
everybody.
for anyone watching for the first time, Carl and I have known each other for a long time. We do the movie ranking spaces, and Carl often comes in. He is a wonderful, cherubic, beatific, just a gorgeous, cute, harmless, charming young man.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why, obviously, we make the obvious joke, which is that he clearly is a serial killer. No one can be this perfect. But yes, obviously, Kyle does not kill people. Just checking. Evil face, you can't get rid of the evil glint in your eye. Anyway, today we are talking about Shogun. The first two episodes dropped this week. There was quite a lot of build up to this. I know that FX have been in production for a long time. A lot of money behind it, a few different rewrites as it's gone along. But I think when well, let me ask you, Carl, what did you know about Shogun before it landed and kind of in the build up to it?
Actually, I knew very little because I really didn't have any inclination to read the book or watch the miniseries, given that it really was before my time, and I really only watched or read stuff that are becoming movies or TV shows. And it was funny because one of the YouTubers I listened to, John Campia, he loved Shogun. He would talk about
Mm-hmm.
Shogun all the time and
Mm-hmm.
say how like it was the one could be or movie that could be made today based off of the book, and like the miniseries was great in its time, but now it was time for an update. And it was so funny because the day that this show was announced, I was actually watching John's live stream of the Disney Plus or Disney Investors Day, where they
Mm-hmm.
actually revealed that this show was in the works. And just seeing his reaction was like gold, because like that was the only connection I had to Shogun. My dad
Mm-hmm.
actually has the VHS collector's edition. It's this giant box set with
Amazing.
like I believe it has like a giant book in it, but my dad says he lost it. But yeah, like I really knew very little of this property, this book, even the
Mm-hmm.
miniseries. So I went in there with a lot of, open mind, and yeah, like it. That is pretty much my history with Shogun. I don't know about you.
So, nothing. I wasn't aware of the miniseries. I wasn't aware of the original content. I have a bit more of a cerebral connection to it, though. Uh, when I was 5, my mum and dad were trying to get me into all sorts of out of school activities, sports and things. And it was a judo club that opened up at the bottom of our road in the community center called Zen Judo. And the sensei was a man in his mid 70s who would walk around eating an orange. But he did all of our classes in Japanese, in the original Japanese. And all the ceremony was taken from a Japanese division of judo. Anyway, I did judo for years and years. I got my black belt, and at quite a young age. And it wasn't until literally this came up, that Shogun came up, that I started thinking back to those days. And I thought, hang on a minute, I knew every throw, every counter, every ground hold, every move in judo. I learned in Japanese. We just knew the Japanese name for it. And therefore, kind of, that got me massively obsessed with everything Japanese when I was about 10 years old. So I went to the library and I read every book which had, well, let's be honest, something with ninjas in the title. But yeah, I've been massively obsessed with Japanese culture for a long time, which is why when this came out and I saw the trailer for it and I saw some of the artwork, I thought it looks beautiful. However, I got to admit I went in quite skeptical, because I knew that this was going to be from this pretty much the same production team that made Game of Thrones. So there's pedigree there, but I just went into it thinking, oh, are you just going to do Game of Thrones but in Japan? Then finding out that obviously there's the historical element to it. Well, let's kick off in terms of how it starts. I didn't know the story. I didn't know where it was going. But one thing I will say about the first episode is it does a masterful job of placing you right there in this world and building it out around you from multiple perspectives. Because we start with Cosmo Jarvis's character, but then we go into the Japanese, into the different tribes and into the different relationships and things. I just thought right off the bat, sometimes you just know in your gut, yeah, this is me. They are nailing this already. Cosmo Jarvis. Had you come across Cosmo before?
I don't know who you're talking about, because I think you mean Tom Hardy, right?
No. Well, he is clearly one half of if you take Tom Hardy and add, I was thinking Jamie Dornan. That was my first thought. You smash together Tom Hardy and Jamie Dornan, but yeah, I think you could mix him with anyone else. That voice is something else, isn't
on
it?
On a serious note, no, I have not heard. I never heard of him before. I assume he's fairly new to this because
he's been in. So he led alongside Florence Pugh in Lady Macbeth, which was
okay. Now I have to see this movie now. Okay,
it's a fantastic movie. Kind of a bit of an indie, bit of an art house. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. I've only ever seen it once. It's one of those that you think is amazing, but I'm not going to watch that again. He's fabulous in that. He starred alongside Barry Keoghan in Calm with Horses, which is an Irish gangster drama, which is, again, he's fabulous in that. He does have his natural speaking voice doesn't sound like that. It is gravelly, but I think as soon as he started speaking, I went, whoa, that's Tom Hardy. Is he? Do you think he's put? I guess he's doing this voice to show that he's English. This is the English voice.
I mean, you actually are more familiar with him, I guess. So I don't know. Does he do that voice in Lady Macbeth? Or
and his accent in Calm with Horses is wonderfully accurate, kind of authentic Irish accent.
Okay.
And I believe he's got a northern accent in Lady Macbeth. So this is the first time I've heard this voice coming out.
Okay. Yeah.
And like you said, it does sound like it should be coming out of Tom Hardy.
It's a great voice. Like I love the way it sounds, and it's funny though, because from what I've heard, the miniseries and I believe the book is more based around Blackthorn's perspective. And here in the show, we're kind of having a proper balance of both the English perspective and the Japanese perspective. And even Haruki Sanada said that he wanted to make sure that was essential, that his culture was represented. And it's very evident it is, because all of these scenes feel so well written and so well articulated, to the point where
and in the original in Japanese as well, which is you would think of maybe a bit of a production. There may have been a note like, do we really want to do all of this? And I love that they committed and just said, no, we're doing half of this show in Japanese, and the audience will come with us or they won't.
Yeah, I love that because like I've had issues lately with at least the blockbuster Japanese films they make, like Mulan, the Disney live action
Mm,
Mulan, and even like 47 Ronin, which came out where they didn't use subtitles. Like it was
mm,
very much, these American accents, and it doesn't gel well when you're trying to. I mean, I can understand. I remember when they did Chernobyl, Craig
mm,
Mazin and the showrunner was really talking about how, the way they did it, they didn't want these actors to A, have subtitles, B, speak in Russian accents, because that would take away from the drama.
mhm,
And I get why they do that with some movies, but for here, I think it was necessary for them to have it feel as authentic as possible. And yeah, I was really taken aback at how much was,
mm.
you know, in Japanese because it I mean, I want to say that for the first episode, it's almost, subtitles.
Pretty
It's
much.
pretty crazy, and it's amazing too. I love it. I love that.
One of the things about that, and was a beauty. I believe it's the first episode, and we'll. I don't think we have time really to go through it in a linear fashion. I think maybe best bit is to take the parts from the first two episodes that really spoke to us, and one of those, just in line with what you were saying about having it, the keeping it in Japanese. I guess the baseline fear, is that something gets lost when a Western audience is having to read the subtitles, which you and I both
Mhm.
know is nonsense. It's as director Bong said at the Oscars a couple of years ago about if you can just get over that 1 centimeter high barrier, the whole world opens up. There is a scene when Sanada's the Shogun character, well, obviously not a Shogun yet, but his second in command is sent to the bay where Cosmo Jarvis's ship has run aground. And obviously, we know from the stories thus far that one of my favorite characters, which we'll come on to, I think he's called Kashigi. He's the guy who he has his special way of killing people. Um,
Oh yeah.
that character is on the beach, and we know that he's basically said to his subordinate that what we'll do is we'll try and hold on to the cannon, and we'll hold on to the gold and things. And then um, Sonata's second in command arrives, and the tone is very different. All of a sudden, the character is saying, we will be taking the cannon, we will be taking the gold. And the response is but this is my fiefdom, lord. And it's just a question. It's not saying no, I won't give it to you. It's just a question. And then in the original Japanese, I just loved it, the way he delivers this line, which is, I would have thought you would have wanted to impress your loyalty upon our lord. But the way it's said in the original Japanese is so brilliant, because you can hear the oh the cadence with which it is spoken. You get everything from it. Like, so just in terms of, I don't think anything gets lost in terms of the performances, just because it's in that original
Yeah.
Japanese.
Yeah, I agree. And that scene is so great. I love how you see the different relationships and interactions in the show between all of the different lords, all the different characters, because it very much like Game of Thrones, they're introducing this world to you, and by introducing the world, they need to introduce you to the characters first. And
Mhm.
that is really what this show's about. Like just the beginning of the show with
The
um
setup is brilliant,
yeah,
isn't it? It's
yeah.
the lord, the king has died, and now there are five people that have to sort it
Mhm.
out amongst them, and they've all picked on four have basically decided to gang up on Sonada's character.
Toranaga, and when Toranaga just meets these lords, it's it's so like what I love about it is you're seeing this almost not mythology, but this lore in this show
the
that
the formality, all of the culture, all of the customs, all of the way that Japanese people interact
Mhm.
is very different to Western culture,
And
and you see that, yeah.
I don't know because I believe this is a limited series. It's only the one season, 10 episodes telling the story from the book.
Mhm.
But oh my god, I wish that this was, Game of Thrones, multiple season series because how much lore is just built into this one or
Mhm.
two episodes. It's like, oh, I want to know more about these lords. I want prequels. I want,
Mhm.
background stories. I want animated content. Like I feel like that shouldn't be the thing we want. We just want a great story, but at the same time I'm like this is so fascinating and it's really great cuz I think all of these lords like there's that one lord with leprosy that
Yep.
is like, "Oh my god," like, I didn't know what that was at first when I saw him,
Mhm.
like, behind a curtain. It was so mysterious, and then you realize what it is, and it's like, "Oh
Mhm.
my goodness, what is going on here?"
It's a beautiful touch, and I think there's lots of that throughout the first 2 episodes, and I think specifically the second as well. I found I found myself watching what clearly is prestige TV. This is as
Mhm.
good as it gets. All the money is up there on the screen.
Yes.
The performances are singing. Uh, the way the way that it is, there's a deftness of touch in terms of
Yeah.
the direction. Because the one thing about this is that it could very easily. And before we came on air, we were talking about Dune and Dune Part Two, and you think about all the lore and mythology behind that, and how seriously uh, not just the fans take it, but how seriously Denis Villeneuve has
Yeah.
taken it. Like the films take themselves
Yeah.
seriously. There's
Mhm.
no, there's none of I think what we've gotten used to in the last few years or decade maybe of this kind of glib touch. Like I don't want to necessarily assign it just to the MCU, but you know what I mean. Like everything has to be kind of quippy and quirky and can't take itself too seriously. There's none of that in this. This commits fully to the seriousness, but it doesn't mean that it's boring, and it doesn't mean that it's heavy. The deftness of touch I found with introducing John Blackthorne to the Spanish character Nestor Carbonell
Yeah,
Rodriguez,
Rodriguez.
wonderful, because you've had quite a lot of heaviness up until that point, and then all of a sudden bang, the story takes you off in a different direction, and it's funny and it's light-hearted, and then it's serious, and then it's action, and I think
What's
juggling
so
all those things,
What's
yeah,
so
is
funny is I love Nestor Carbonell. He's one of my favorite actors in Bates Motel,
mm,
and I mean, I
lost.
loved him in the Dark Knight trilogy, but I didn't even recognize him.
No, me neither. Well, it's one of those uncanny things. Like, who is that? I know. Who are you? Quick Google. No fucking way.
Yeah, because he had, the gray hair with the
Mm,
beard, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, what a great, transition to play this role where he really, I mean, what a role. Like that is a
yeah.
really meaty role and especially like when he pulls the gun on
Mm.
Blackthorn and you're like, "Oh boy, oh
I
boy."
love that every character. I think the interesting thing is, in terms of what you would predict from this, I think the most obvious character, the character which hasn't really brought any surprises, and I don't mean that as a criticism, um, is the main character. How do you pronounce the Sanada's character's name?
Toranaga.
Toranaga. Toranaga is what I expected. However, all of these fringe characters along the way have all got these sharp edges to them already
Yeah.
within 2 episodes. You have, as we said, Kashigi, who likes to
She
just that he's a bit of a freak. He's a bit of a freak, but he also is courageous. he's not a black or white character, and I think that applies to pretty much all of this gallery that we have so far with Nestor Carbonell. Clearly John Blackthorne, we don't trust him either. Like, this is not the good guy we're following. This is a guy who has his own machinations that I'm sure we haven't come across yet. I think having that kind of unreliable POV through him is really interesting, but it's hard to pull off. And I think the performances are what are making it at the moment.
I mean, speaking of Kashigi's methods, oh my goodness, that is one of that has to be in the top 3 worst torture scenes I've ever seen in my life.
Absolutely gruesome.
Oh my god. What is that?
When you think as well, because there's the way that they do it is very clever. They put him in, and we're in no doubt very quickly what's going to happen. But the way that they do it is they cut away, and then they show very quickly passages of time, and the screaming is just continuing and continuing and continuing. And now it's gotten dark, and we know he's been in there for hours, and the stream. And then, I don't know if you had this thought. I think most people had this thought watching it, which is, if that was me, what would I do? And then just as that thought clicked into my head, as you think it can't get any more uncomfortable, they just go straight in with the shot in the cauldron, and you see this. I mean, the prosthetics are incredible, but I think emotionally I was already unready for seeing it, like the gray sagging skin coming off of him, and you just, I can't take anymore. And just as you feel that slamming his head on the corner of the pot, because that's the thought that jumped into my head, was that's how I would end it.
And how about, like, when you hear those screams, it's telling you 1,000 words without showing. I mean, you don't need to see it. It's just you're hearing what the pain he's going through, and you can just imagine it there. And it's even worse that way, because you never can almost, you just keep hearing it. And then they had that part, I mean, afterwards, where was it Cortesian? She comes in and she's just I apparently, because I watched it on a network broadcast on FX.
Oh, okay. Did
they censored that scene, and I didn't know that. I don't know how they did it, but then I heard no, you saw it. It was full nudity, and I was like, wait.
I can't believe they did.
So it is the cost of not having Hulu, but
have you seen it since? Because essentially, and I'm not gonna steal his joke. This is Andy Greenwald on the Ringer, the Watch podcast. This is his joke, but I loved it. He said, "How nice that after his special death, the character then invented cucking effectively in the 1600s." 16th century Asian cucking, right there on screen. Listen, let's talk about it, because Ian McShane, and we've mentioned Game of Thrones, and if you look at the production credits afterwards, it is entirely made up of the same crew that made Game of Thrones. So you're getting this prestige TV. Now, Ian McShane, who I loved in his cameo when he was in Game of Thrones, he described it as tits and dragons. Basically, that's what Game of Thrones is. Now, the sexual nature, the sexual element to the show, again, there's been this conversation quite a lot recently about whether or not sex scenes are just purely gratuitous, whether they're needed, whether they drive the story, whether they're good or bad. What was your take, or what is your take roughly? I mean, where do you sit? I was about to say, where do you sit on nudity? But
well, you see, like, I hate nudity, Skadoosh. Like, it's just the
Uh-huh.
worst thing in the world. I mean, I don't want to see any of it. I don't want to
Mhm.
see anything. No, I'm kidding. So the
I never believe
thing
you.
is, I say just go for it, because this is a medium where you can literally do whatever you want.
Mhm.
Like, this isn't something where we're trying to cater to children, people that have certain views. This is on FX, it's on Hulu, it's on,
Mhm.
a later time, and it's supposed to be mature, and people have sex,
Yeah,
like,
they do,
it's a thing of
you
life.
you and it's, especially how it perhaps maybe not differs, but obviously, I think people have noted in the Japanese and have a different relationship to sex than we do in the West, and in
Mm,
terms of what they deem to be appropriate for younger viewing. I was shocked, and I don't know if this has changed, but I remember someone telling me when I was a teenager, that they don't have there's there's no what we used to call in the UK like a watershed moment, which is you
mhm,
can't show swearing or sex or violence after before 9 o'clock.
yeah,
Um, no such thing apparently in Japan. They have a much more open kind of, I guess, view on it or perspective, or that's just how things have transpired. But in terms of going back to Game of Thrones and what worked there and what works with this perfectly is that court intrigue, that central plot device of this is a this is a cat fight effectively for power and control, um, and sex is definitely plays a part in terms of how courts work and how people are manipulated, how alliances are drawn. Sex is a part of that, and
mhm,
in terms of, I mean, the scenes that we've seen so far, I think that there's not. I haven't been shocked or anything like that. I've thought that they perfectly play a part that they need to in terms of. And again, we talked about the sex scene. The first one, I guess, is that part of essentially showing us a very different part of one of the characters' personality. We see
yeah,
first we're kind of introduced. He's just boiled someone alive, so our first view is probably accurately this guy's a psychopath.
yeah.
But then that interaction almost immediately after is very interesting, and it gives him another edge. It gives him another, so that I think what it comes down to, and we'll get on to the end part of how we've left episode 2. But by the time we're getting towards the end of that second episode, I think we're already starting to see where the story is going. You're
Yeah.
starting to see the paths ahead. And I love that that thing of throwing together a character who doesn't speak the language, comes from a whole new world, and throwing him together with this Kashigi character. I can't wait to see what happens episodes
I
three,
gotta
four, five.
say, so the title of episode 1
What
is
was
called
it?
it's called Anjin. Anjin.
Engine, yeah.
Do you know what that stands for?
No,
What that means?
no.
It means pilot.
There we are. Now, and as well, can we? I know we jumped around a lot. Pi- um, the scenes at sea, is that the second episode or the first? Where they're transporting him to. Is it
It's the first. It's the first, because the first ends when he gets there. So it's the
gets
first
to?
one.
Is it Osaka that he gets to?
Yeah, he gets to
Um,
Osaka.
that's it. And again, talk about the money on screen, like the
Ooh.
way the
I
way
mean,
the.
he goes under to the next deck. Like, you're not
Mhm,
just like, I thought it was just a regular set. I thought it was just, he's on the top of the
mhm.
ship, but no, he can go under it. It's like,
Under
okay, this is a real production. Like, this
it,
isn't, you know, this
it's
isn't on the
crazy.
volume. Or maybe it
No,
is on the volume, but
well, this is the thing, is that when you're seeing some of the recent MCU output in terms of visual effects, let's just be honest, call it, it's been a shit show uh, for quite some time now, and it's not
This is
even a case of.
Skadoosh is trashing on the MCU in this.
I have to say what I see. Like, I didn't think the Marvels was that bad, or as bad as everyone thought it was. But one thing was, in terms of being able to see the seams. Do you know what I mean? In terms of the visual effects, like when you can clearly see, okay, you're in front of a green screen and the action is happening.
Yeah.
Now, I thought the boat sequence was insane, absolutely insane, because I started looking for the joins, and I could only just about see them in terms of where they've got the sea moving in the background and things. But it's the way that the images and sounds are cut together, and they do a good shaky cam when he goes down underneath, and then you have the water coming in. It was pretty much flawless, absolutely flawless. I don't know how much it took to create that in terms of money, but I think a lot of that was just, it was well planned out, and they knew shot to shot to shot, the audience is going to really feel like they're being bounced around this ship, and it works.
It brings you back to the days of Game of Thrones when they used to shoot those episodes, because like I feel like ever since Game of Thrones ended, television itself has kind of had a tough time trying to figure itself out in this new world of, streaming. And like they even have, like, now at Disney Plus, a lot of the Disney Plus output is they're not television shows, in my opinion. They are movies that are cut into television shows. And at first that was like a deal. Like when they made Falcon and the Winter Soldier, they were like, okay, this is a really cool idea. This is, we're going to take a Marvel movie and we're going to make it into a TV series. The problem was that they kept on doing this. They didn't, they finally, it looks like with like Daredevil Born Again, finally it looks like they're going to get back into making television and not a movie cut down
Not
into the
really
same
long.
part.
Exactly.
And that's what I
Exactly.
love about Shogun right now. What we're watching is a 10-episode series with episodes that are like an hour and 10
Hour 10.
minutes.
Yeah.
Like that is a wonderful runtime for a show like this that is trying to do so much in a very limited amount of time, given that it's still 10 episodes. It's not like your traditional 20 episode series. So I
Can
love
I
it.
ask you, in terms of that runtime, when it first came up? Now, I knew by the time I pushed play on the first episode, I knew the reviews were very, very good. So I
Yes,
had a
same.
lightness of heart, and therefore when I clicked play and it said 1 minute, 1 hour 10 for the first episode, my gut reaction was yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
same.
That's the
Same.
right length for this. That feels the right length for this.
I'm so tired, Skadoosh, of these shows that it's like 35 minutes. And I'm like, wait, hold on. It's
Yeah.
not 35 minutes because there's credits, there's an
Hmm.
intro, there's a recap. You're telling
Hmm.
me that a show that should be an hour long is now honestly around the same length as a sitcom?
Hmm.
Get out of here. And that is, I share your sentiment, because
Mm.
when they, revealed these episodes, I've had the same thing with a number of other shows lately I've been watching, because we have a lot of good TV out right now.
Yeah.
I adore right now I'm really loving Halo the series,
Uh-huh.
and Avatar: The Last Airbender on Netflix I enjoyed.
I hear good
And like
things.
these are shows that are, an hour, 49 minutes long, like the actual like regular TV runtimes, and it just feels so good to watch it.
Mhm.
And I mean, that was, I don't know about you. You said you watched it what, about 2 in the morning?
Yeah.
Or you watched it till 2 in the morning?
No, I would have watched it at 2 in the morning. It would have been gone
Oh
for
my
ages.
goodness.
Yeah, easily.
Stephanie really kept you up.
Well, actually, I mean, if it wasn't for her, I'd have been, yeah, it would have been a lot, it'd been a lot worse. I want to talk, what you said there about the run times, it completely makes sense in terms of, I was talking the other day to someone about True Detective, the latest series of True Detective,
Yeah.
and how when by the time I got to the end, And I think this is a great example. I think there is a purity behind our own gut reaction to a show. And I think with prestige television like this, where, and especially if you've committed to 6, 7, 8 hours worth of television and storytelling, you've committed that time. And that's how you know at the end, you know if, whether or not by the time you've reached the destination, if the journey has been worth it.
Yeah.
Because you know if it hasn't. And unfortunately, I found in the case of True Detective that I just knew at the end, by the time we got there, I was like, okay, we got there, but yeah. It's another the thing with the run times, I think that's important, because when you're doing 30, 35-minute episodes, it perhaps doesn't give the audience enough time to really
It's
absorb
also
that heft that you
it's also
need.
not just the runtime, but the episode count, because
Yes,
wasn't True Detective 6 episodes?
6.
So, like, you're talking about a show, I mean, it was traditional runtime, like 50 minutes long, but
Yeah.
it's still 6 episodes where you need, I think, more for some of these other shows, and that was also another one I really enjoyed, True Detective Night Country, but, like, yeah, it's something else that I feel we are hopefully getting back to. And, like, I watched this on FX. This was the first time I've watched a show on FX since Legion ended, and that was in
Oh,
around, I
wow.
think, 2019, I wanna say. It was a long time ago.
Rest in peace, Dan Stevens' Legion.
Yeah, oh, I love that show, and, I remember Taboo was one of the last ones too that was on there.
Now, speaking
Mhm,
of Tom Hardy,
mhm.
I mean, it's a different voice, but I mean, that was my first thought, was that maybe he is channeling Tom Hardy's voice in Taboo.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think even Tom Hardy really knows what his own accent is, though. Going back to what you were saying about, again, those run times, 30 minutes not being enough really to latch onto it, especially with True Detective. I felt that 6 episodes wasn't enough. I felt almost, speaking of Game of Thrones, I think the argument about the ending of Game of Thrones was they felt that they rushed it in those last couple of episodes, and it felt that way with True Detective. The thing that I felt most let down about True Detective was that I thought there'd been so much good work going up to. I loved episode 4, absolutely loved episode 4, and I was really starting to see the shape of the characters and the relationship between them,
Mhm.
between um, uh, Callie Reese and Jodie Foster's character, the father son relationship. I was starting to see the bones of something really great, and then they never really gave me any more after that. And what there is in abundance in Shogun is characters, interesting characters, interesting dynamics,
Yes.
and it's all, the plot is going to play out. That I can see it kind of as a spider's web as it goes before me. But the thing is that I I know that when it goes from one plot line to another, I'm going to be just as interested in the one it goes to as the one that it's come from,
Yeah.
which is a hard thing to do. Very hard.
Yeah. Uh, I think, though, what we should talk about, because we haven't talked about it yet, I wanna talk about Mariko, because I
Mhm.
think that she is a really intriguing character to start, getting us into this series. She's played by this actress that I've kind of noticed she's started to pop up in a number of things. Her name is, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but it's
Anna Sawai?
Anna Sawai.
I think so, yeah. Anna Sawai. Oh, Giri Haji. That's where I know her from. Yeah, that was a television series, kind of a HBO BBC kind of cross collaboration project. Again, very simple, half Japanese, half the story in Japan, half the story in the UK.
So so she was actually in Monarch: Legacy of Monsters,
Oh
the
yes,
Godzilla series I still need to watch. and that was like, I think she's like the lead of that show,
Uh-huh.
and she was also in Fast and Furious 9 as Han's adopted or daughter
Talking to the
character.
wrong guy, brother.
Yeah,
With speaking Marley about all that stuff, I switched off,
it was a
switched
weird
off
subplot,
after
but
5.
she was good in it, I guess. But like she's getting into, I think, the really well, at least the television medium, but she's getting really known. And here, this is, I would say that right now this show has 3 leads. It has
Mm.
Haruki Sanada as Toranaga, it has Cosmo Jarvis as Blackthorn, and it has Anna as Mariko. And
Mm.
I think she has a very like regal presence. She really, I think, kind of captures the scene when she walks into the room. I love the idea that, I don't know the name of the other character, but like there's like the priest that's
Yep.
has this like
Who taught
relationship with
her?
her.
Yeah, who taught her English and Portuguese and that sort
I loved the scene between her. What happened was he was the translator, and how
Mm.
they translated it, it was like,
It's
he's
great.
talking to Toranaga, but the translator kind of, you don't hear the translator,
I'm so
you
glad
know?
you brought that up, because there's 2 scenes of that. The first scene is, I think, is the translator proving that he's capable of being unbiased and is accurately translating between
Great scene.
and wonderful scene. And
Oh,
then it gets better. I swear to God, that scene where he draws the map, where
yeah,
he's asked by Toranaga, and the
so good.
translations that are done, you see how she just subtly shifts the language
Yeah,
sometimes. Like the point in which where he was saying, um, he, my queen wants to my queen wants to uh, my queen wants to join forces with you to vanquish our enemies. And the way
yeah,
he says it is British. It's kind of, it's a bit melodramatic. It's and the way she translates it as, he wishes to enlist your support. Like, just so clever, tells us so much about her and where her loyalties are, and the way that she, I think her capabilities as a player, really, in this whole
yeah.
court thing. I thought, yeah, that scene in
Wait,
particular.
so it is the second scene where you don't see, you don't see her, you don't hear her translating, you just see the 2 of them talking back to back?
That it eventually, yeah, it
Okay,
kind
yeah.
of, they do something clever there. They kind of morph and then morph back again into a
It's
more formal
so I've never
translation.
seen that done before. It was such
Very
a
clever, very
unique,
simple,
yeah. Yeah,
very,
I
very
think,
clever.
I mean, just that alone shows you the care and the real expert,
Mm.
I mean, the writing of the show, the production, and we were talking about the production in terms of how everything looks so good. It also, I also love the idea that, this is in this time period, like 1600
Mm.
Japan, and I mean, you feel like you're there. You feel like this is like, especially like when, in the first episode, Blackthorn sees, oh wait, I'm like the first Englishman to come here, and this is how they translate him through a Portuguese,
Mhm.
guy that they think that they're the same,
Mhm.
and and I saw someone mention how it's kind of like a reverse thing where usually you see, um like, say, like an alien movie, right? Where the aliens come to Earth
Yeah.
and the humans discover the aliens. Well,
Mhm.
here, this is when the first episode begins, you see the Japanese soldiers enter the boat, and they're the ones that are seeing through this perspective instead of it
Uh-huh.
being an Englishman seeing through the perspective of the other, the one that isn't them. It's that the one that
So
is,
clever.
on the
it,
outskirts.
it provides two things at the same time, because yes, this is a Western show produced. I don't know if it's fair to say it is produced for a Western audience, because I think Japanese audiences and Asian audiences will come to this. I hope they come to this. But as you said, from our Western perspective, it's clever and new and interesting because it's inverted, as you
Yeah.
say. We're seeing the Japanese seeing what we're used to seeing, whereas a Japanese audience, to them it will be inverted, reversed. It's just all the tying in knots.
Mm.
One thing I wanted to talk about, just going back to the notion about how seriously it takes itself. The things that there are only a few things that most people know about Japan. They know about sushi, they know about electronics, and they know about is it called harikiri or seppuku? I believe is the other, which is
Seppuku,
essentially
yeah.
um, suicide, honor-based suicide. If you feel that, in terms of the culture and values and etiquette, if you have seemed to have disgraced yourself, it is more honorable to take your own life than in anything else, which is, I mean, completely on its head compared to, I guess, some
Oh,
Christian
how about
doctrine and what we've grown up in.
the man that kind of disgraces his own family by standing up for Tornaga, and then he has to sacrifice his own son.
I couldn't. I mean, I'm glad they cut away from that. That's exactly what I wanted to say about is the stakes in this show are
Yeah.
genuine and they are high. They are
Yeah.
high. They would have been high anyway, but there is something about, again, the period of time and the Japanese culture where stakes are already high anyway compared to what we are used to. We're not
Yeah.
used to seeing characters who perhaps fail, then instantly prepare themselves to
Yeah.
slice their own stomachs open. I think, again, it could. There are so many places along this story so far where it could have gone wrong, and I think the main takeaway I've taken from just those first two episodes are they've executed it perfectly, near perfectly so far. I just hope
I
that continues.
I think as we see with the future episodes, it looks like Mariko will develop this relationship with Blackthorn, which I'm very curious about seeing. Because what's also cool right now is we're seeing different storylines, like the whole idea of a white savior storyline that we're seeing. Doom Part 2 is subverting that story.
Absolutely.
And I'm very curious to see how they do that in Shogun, because right now what we're seeing a white savior like story, but it is through the perspective of the Japanese characters. So it, I think, is a new way to tell that, and I think it's really respectful to the culture, it's really respectful to the viewers, and I think that's going to be, something we'll see later on in this season. But I'm also excited because I saw some reviews where it was like, this show is really great at just the dialogue, the conversations, more than it, don't go into the show expecting samurai battles and,
Hmm.
your fair share of stuff.
Yeah,
But I saw the trailers for like the next number of episodes,
you got
and
some
I
action.
I don't know, man, but like they have some epic looking shots, and
I'm
I
so
I
glad you said that. I'm so glad you
I
said that.
have to reserve my expectations. Like, I cannot
Mm,
expect to see a gigantic battle, but goodness, if we get that in this show,
mm. From this team as well.
right now, I think this is the shoe-in for winning all the awards. We're only 2 episodes in, but I
Sure.
think that, if this show is this epic thing that it, resolves itself into, This might be one of the
might be
best
it.
shows, you
This
know?
might be it. There's a couple of things. Speaking of the action, and I loved as well, is that we haven't had ninjas. There's been very little action. There's been no real sword play.
Mm-hmm.
But in that second episode, the way the final act of that second episode ratchets up when you have John Blackthorne being rescued when he's with the hood over his head, and almost like House of
Oh,
Flying Daggers. House of Flying Daggers.
yes.
I absolutely adored that. It was done cleanly, effortlessly, and with zero fuss.
And then they just kill the bandits. I
Bang, bang, bang.
love that.
And then just with the just so like, and also as well, just again speaking of stakes, is that by the time they pull the hood off of John Blackthorne, 20 men have died.
Yeah.
Like almost 20 men have died for him. And it starts to, I think in the build up to that, we had the cliff scene, which I thought was so clever, so interesting.
Oh, great scene.
That you have John Blackthorne looking at Rodriguez down at the bottom of the cliff. The essentially what is a game of chicken that he plays with Kashigi's character,
Kashigi, yeah.
who then goes down. And then the way, and going back to what you were saying about where they're going with this, is that it rides that line of, you do want audiences to start seeing potentially where the story is going. That is a good thing. Sometimes the trick is to keep pace with the audience. Sometimes there are a lot of stories which are still telling us stuff that most of us have already worked out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The thing with that is that I can see the intrigue coming from John Blackthorne character and
Kashigi.
Mariko, and
Oh,
Mariko as
Miracle,
well.
yeah.
Those three ones, but it's the interesting thing is I think they planted a seed with that cliff scene of how John Blackthorne, perhaps he clearly hates Catholics. He clearly has done bad things in his life. He often speaks of, there's a line he says, "This is I don't die here. This is not how I die." He seems to have quite a fervent belief in something. But the interesting thing about the cliff scene is that's where you start to see him. He was shocked when he saw that when Kashigi's character is about to be crashed against the rocks, he turns and is about to rather take his own life, take control. I think seeing that little glint in his eye and seeing the connection between those two, there's something really exciting. I mean, the whole of The Last Samurai is based on this, isn't it? About the Ted Lasso character who, fish out of water, comes to a new culture and learns about their ways, and in a way, kind of the things that are missing in him, he finds in this new culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so here for that. So here for that.
I want to mention though, with just like action wise, the ending of episode 2, when she's just plowing through that entire house, I guess you could say, she's just like so effortlessly killing these people. And I love what Tornaga does, because he like slashes at her and then he just like boop, he just knocks her down. It's like, okay, that's a badass right
really
there.
wonderfully choreographed transition in that. As she walks in, he slices the back of her neck and then goes to sheath his sword, as he pretty much knows he's in no more danger now. But then Cosmo Jarvis's character has entered the scene, and there's a moment where Cosmo, I think, sees him starting to sheath his sword. Now, I don't think he knows that she's been sliced in the back of her neck. That's why, and there's a tiny little moment between them where Jarvis jumps in, Blackthorne jumps in to save and fight, and he gets his arm cut. But it gets noticed, and it's half a second. Sonada's character notices it, and all of a sudden we've got a deeper connection.
Yeah.
is that even though he was in no trouble, this man still jumped in to save my life. And then,
Yeah.
like you, the the punctuation on that scene, just
Yeah.
the just
Just incredible.
just casually butts her into the garden.
Yeah.
I am sorry for this, dude. Will you catch up with it? Listen, I've come up. What do you think of bro guns for our weekly catch up on Shogun on the
Man,
uh,
that title is too good that it makes me want to just do it on that title.
bro guns? Let's do it. Okay, so if what we'll bring it to an end there. You and I catch up again next week, I assume, after we've seen.
We'll say, yeah.
We'll see how we go. I think both of us love this and are so excited to see where it's going. Kyle, have you got anything coming out? Have you got anything dropping, or tell people about where they can find you?
It is funny you should say that because yesterday I had my new podcast, The Massive Movie Maniacs, episode 1 released, even though we did like a test episode before that, but episode 1 was released. It's the best and worst movies of 2023.
Mm-hmm.
I did that with my friend Noah, and that is out on Spotify right now. So just look up Massive Movie Maniacs.
Amazing. Awesome. Brilliant. Kyle, thank you so much. Send my love to Grandma Pearl.
I will.
And we will catch up again and we will bro gun the shit out of this.
Can't
Bye,
wait.
brother.
Okay, take care.
In the words of the big blue dude, bye bye now. Bye bye. Bye bye now. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye.